like the timer.
I know. What is up? Welcome to the Mixer. This is Jeff, Sans co-host RC today. But I have a celebrity with us. This is Anthony Ryan. He is the commissioner for our home football league, fantasy football league. And since we're getting ready, it's about that time of the year. So I figured I'd bring him on and let him talk about our league a little bit. So how you doing, Anthony?
Thank you for having me on the failed Microsoft streaming platform you guys purchased for what I assume was very, very little money.
This is a free trial at the moment. So
Okay. Yeah, nothing's purchased as free these days in the capitalist driven society we live in. No, but it's happy to be here. Um, I like I like the opportunity to come on and kind of talk about the league and what we're doing and specific updates because this saves me having to record a separate video for the league and then throw it up on YouTube. Now we can just do it this way, and but the two of us get to talk shit about everyone else versus me just recording in my office, which is nice.
yeah, exactly. And it's not much different than what we do in the chat anyway. So
Yeah. I mean, we're the physical embodiment of the Discord chat right now, minus constant Padres shit posting and very subtle memes of my brother-in-law posts on the daily.
oh yeah, Little Mason, love that guy. So let's get started. So how long has the mixer been around?
So we started. So the mixer as the core group of friends has been around since high school. We were all class of 2005, so early 2000s. We all kind of gravitated toward one another out of different social circles, and started hanging out very consistently junior and senior year. Like I had known a lot of these guys from elementary school and middle school, but because I was kind of like a transplant and floating around different groups than they were. I was kind of brought in a little bit later than a lot of these guys, but we've all kind of been a very close knit group, even after we graduated, and a lot of us went to college and moved and did a bunch of different stuff. And then one of the ideas that I had was, hey, we all like sports. We're all very casual watchers. Some of us are athletes, some of us are me. So why don't we do something that allows us to continue to hang out with one another? My whole thing is, as we're going to get older and as we start getting, spouses and children and different job opportunities, we're all going to, like, adult human nature is to drift apart. So this was an opportunity for me to give us something that we could do to A, enhance the sport that we all love, B, to keep in touch with one another, and give us an excuse to talk, and C, really kind of flex who knows more about sports. Some of us are more vocal than others about different sports or different teams or following different athletes. But this was an opportunity for everybody to kind of like flex their metal and say, okay, we all like football. We all know about football. This is the most popular fantasy sport. Let's get into that. So 2010 was actually the first year where I had said, okay, let's throw together a fantasy football group and see what happens. I won't get into that season. The asterisk knows who he is, but there was some.
Funny business going on?
I wasn't the commissioner the first year, and there were some rule changes that were enacted right before and during the playoffs that soured most of the league. So
Gotcha.
when the league had ended, most people decided they didn't want to play anymore. Now, I was quite the opposite. I was one of those people that got unfairly like lost or whatever. Actually, I don't even think I made the playoffs that year. I think it was such super crap, but I loved it. I thought it was great, and I started getting into like the metrics and the minutia of the stat tracking and watching rising trends and when to trade and when to pick up, and it became a fascinating hobby for me. So I took the league from the previous commissioner, and I said I want to do this again. Obviously, a lot of our real life friends were kind of soured by the experience, so I started drawing from coworkers and some of my friends who weren't in this group, and we put the league back together the next year, and it took off from there. That year, the first year we did it, I won thanks to Rogers getting benched in week 17, and what was it? Matt Castle came out and threw like
Yeah. No.
330.
Matt Flynn.
Matt Flynn came out
Yeah.
and threw 330 yards and like 5 touchdowns, and I won because I picked him up.
Right.
Because I think that year I had Megatron and Stafford as well, who and the Lions actually had a really good year that year. Um, and then from there, it started the title started switching hands. We didn't have a trophy until I want to say 2013 or 2014, but
Okay.
we had like the league was rolling, and then after a couple years, um, we started losing people again. So I just decided, okay, this is a good opportunity to go back to this core group of friends and go, hey, new management, it's working well. Did you like this? Really fun? Do you guys want back in? So there's only been three people that have been in the league since it started, and that's me, Matt, and Danny.
Okay.
And everyone else has kind of been fluctuating in and out. The group we have now, I think, is the most stable group of people that we've had. Every year, I think there's at least one person that drops out, but we try to keep at least the same core going. And
Right.
yeah, I think we're on like year 11. I think it's 11th season or something.
Nice.
And I mean, it's still going strong. It's still something that we all look forward to. I mean, draft day is like a holiday for us. It's always like the Sunday before, like the Sunday before the season starts, which is usually Labor Day weekend.
I have it
That
saved in my phone all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. That night, like I every year I get that night. Like I leave early from work that night, or I get that night off. And but nobody usually works Sundays because you got a lot of you guys work 9 to 5s and 5 day a week jobs. And
Right.
we make a night of it. Like the dream is one year to get. I mean, we've talked about this since 2012. The dream is to like do a Vegas draft, like to
Right.
go and rent out like a room or something, and just get a bottle service or whatever, and just like take our time and draft that night. Like while because draft is always so much fucking fun. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, the season takes off from there. And the fact that we have had very casual people win and then very hardcore people win, I love the dynamic of this group because there are some of us that think like, oh well, we know way more than everybody else, and then we end up not even making the playoffs some years.
Right.
And then Corey was a guy who was last place one year and then won the championship the next year.
Yeah.
So it's great to have that sort of dynamic and consistent shift, but also now since I mean you've moved away, I've moved away, several other people have moved away. We're all much busier with work and our lives and this, that, and the other. Kids are showing up. It's still a consistent. It still gives us
Right.
an excuse to chat every day or often. Still gives us an excuse to have these rivalries, meet up with person, shit talk, create memories, that sort of stuff. So it's done its intended purpose, which was allow us to continue to be close, give us an excuse to continue to be close, and to include people that we all really care about and want to keep an eye on, and get an excuse to see each other. Because as we get older, when you start running out of excuses like bachelor parties and weddings and excuses to get together, this is just another excuse to get together.
Right.
So, yeah. I think that was an over explanation of the original question you asked, which was tell me how it started.
That works. I mean, I know a little bit about the history of the league. I joined in, I think it was 2015 or 2016.
hmm
It was right around there.
hmm
And I forget. Oh, I think I replaced Aaron, if I
Yep.
remember correctly.
Yeah, he got the
Um,
last place. He refused to do the punishment, so we booted him. And then we were looking for someone who would kind of fill the role that Aaron filled, which was a heavy shit talker of anything Matt said or did. So I love Matt, but he has a tendency to like boast or overtalk, and he needs to be checked consistently. And so when we had put your name up, because I had met you before and I liked you a lot, and several other people had worked with you or knew you and vouched heavily for you. So
well, I
like we
remember.
do,
I think around that time, I had started playing indoor soccer with a few of you guys. I think
yeah, yeah,
Justin,
yeah.
Rob, Corey, I
And
think was there. So
so when we had said, okay, we need to fill this spot, your name was put up for nomination, and just like anything we do in the league, I run this league very transparently. We do everything by vote. I bring everything to the table. I don't make any change without discussing it with the league and getting a 2/3 majority vote. Because I don't like. I very rarely have I had to use the commissioner like we're making this change and that's it. Because I think the key to having a good fantasy league is transparency and communication. So in this, we were like, okay, who's up for this? And you got voted in almost unanimously, and I think you know the person that said no.
If I remember correctly, it was Matt who said
It
no.
was 100% because he knew exactly what was going to happen. That you were going to come in and immediately start talking shit and bringing him down a peg every possible opportunity because he likes to debate and talk, and you are more. You do it to everybody, but more so him. You go no 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 no. Explain that, or no 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 no. You're wrong, and here's why you're wrong. So you were a nice foil to him, and but again, you were also like a lot of us really liked you, so it was very easy. You got voted in, like I said, almost unanimously, and it's been
Nice.
awesome having you in since because you've been a big help to me, and um, I mean, you passed the test. My dad likes you, so you passed the test in my family, so that was what it
Yes.
boiled down to.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, this has been since I've joined it, probably my favorite league. Just year in and year out, the dependency, like everyone's going to be there pretty much. I know there was one year where I think Justin and Corey dropped out, right?
Yep.
But other than that, it's been pretty, at least since I've been in, pretty stable. We did go from, there were 10 people when I first started.
Hmm.
And then I think it was either the next year or the year after we added Jake and Mason. It was
I
pretty
think it
quickly after I
was. I
joined.
think it was the year after. I think it was the year
Yeah,
after because I had brought Mason into the chat because he was friends with a
right.
lot of these guys, and then that you and him hit it off like fucking immediately. And
I
then
love that
there was
guy.
talk. There was talk. Rob was talking like proposed a 12 team as opposed to a 10 team, and that vote passed. So I was like, okay, well we need two bodies. So Matt and Jess nominated Jake, who was living with them at the time, and then I
Right.
nominated Mason, which was seconded by you, and both those votes passed and they got added in and have been in since.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, in my opinion, great additions to the league. I enjoy
Absolutely.
everyone in the league.
Hmm.
So just for so everyone knows kind of our league scoring, we do a super flex, which is becoming the trendy thing. And you guys actually did this before I even joined, I believe.
Hmm.
It's been a super flex since I've been in the league.
It's been a super flex since I
Um,
took over in 2011 because I like the
okay,
idea of having the option to do two quarterback, but I also like the idea of if you can't field that, or if your quarterback's only going to get 8 to 20 points anyway, you might as
right,
well throw in like if you stack up on one position, you can still benefit out of getting something out of that position. But obviously,
right,
most of the time, you're going to get more consistent value out of a two quarterback. Because to me, I think even with 12 teams, everybody can field two quarterbacks. And quarterbacks are the biggest
yeah,
point getters. And it's more fun to play it that way. But locking it into like a strict two quarterback system kind of forces people to play subpar options. Whereas if
right.
you've got two top tight ends or you've got two of the top five running backs, and you want to slot one of them in the flex, and you know they're going to get more points than any guy you'd waiver, go nuts. To me, I like the
Yeah,
flexibility.
I agree with you on that. And then we do PPR as well. That was a shift made, a rule change, I believe like 2017 ish or 2016. I don't remember if it was
And I was
exactly
originally against
when.
it, actually.
Yeah. I'm glad we made that change. I don't know how everyone feels, but I enjoy PPR much more than standard. But I don't dislike standard.
Hmm.
Um,
No, I'm the same way.
but
I needed to be convinced. I needed to see a season of it and see like, okay, how is it going to shift the scoring? But honestly, it kind of makes it a little more balanced, and I'm all about balance. So I
yeah,
know Rob is recently trying to push for half point because he thinks it's a little too on the one side. Um, but I actually kind of like the full point system. I think it kind of it values with the league moving to a more spread backfield or hot hand style of backfields, and you have specialist running backs whose job is to catch the ball if they're running like a bubble screen or a
right.
dump off pass or something, design plays to set up receivers as blockers. Those running backs are now not guys you draft at 160 to 200. Now it's a legit strategy to go, well, if I'm going to get five catches for 20 to 30 yards, I mean, that's an extra 8 points a game.
Right.
Slot them into your running back instead of having to just be like, well, I didn't get the top five guys. Oh well, guess I'll just draft a bunch of slubs and hope one of them gets the ball a couple handoffs a game because the league is kind of shifting their dynamic to just burning out running backs
Right.
like Duracell batteries as opposed to actually investing in one or two guys.
Yeah.
So
It makes sense. So I know as a league, we haven't done our rule change votes yet.
No, we
I
haven't.
know we generally do that. Uh, I forget if you do it right at the beginning of August or when you do it usually, but I know we haven't done it yet. But I want to ask you, what is a rule that you would love to see in the league that is not or has not ever been voted on?
Has never been voted on, or
Well, it can be voted on or just something that
okay.
hasn't passed that isn't in the league. I know in the
Uh,
past you and I have talked about doing an auction,
that is one hundred
but I
percent it.
don't.
That is
Okay,
100% it. So I like the idea of everybody being able to go after the player that they want. Snake is fair, but it also means that like whatever position you get, you are kind of locked into whatever player you think is going to fall. Especially the first couple rounds. I know you and Rob heavily do mocking for the league. And every year, like you guys, like I think you even on this channel, you guys do like a breakdown of like who's going to take who when, or where you guys do a bunch of mocks of like where people will fall using our rules. And to me, as fun as that is, that also just kind of, unless you really throw a curveball and purposely don't take the guy that's recommended by the vast majority of experts, like everybody kind of knows how the draft is going to shake out.
right,
And you're just kind of like, oh, I really like for instance, let's say you're really like, I'm really really big on Lamar and Patrick. Like I love those I love those quarterback. I usually go quarterback first round. But let's say I'm lower in especially in a super flex league, I'm lower in the draft order. Like I'm 8 through 10, 8 through 12. I'm not getting those guys. There's absolutely no way I get those guys. Whereas in an auction, if I'm giving a flat amount of money and I decide I'm going in on that player, then that means might have to pay a little bit more if somebody bids me up. But I can say I'm going to die on this hill. I'm going to get this guy, and it gives me the opportunity to build the team the way I want within reason, versus being tied to, okay, well, I'm tied to this number. Let me mock up 50 times and go, okay, these are the players I'm usually going to end up with, and then try to build
right,
a strategy around that with some other highlighted names put in. To me, it just adds a deeper dynamic to your draft strategy, but it does require a lot more study of every player and
right,
guys, and the way you want to build your team versus just like, okay, like who's best available? Because let's be honest, there are guys in our league that are like, the who's next on the list, who hasn't been drafted yet, right? Like, and I'm not going to knock anybody who does that, but I don't like that strategy. I don't like the laziness that comes with, okay, it's round 7, I'm already checked out, like a couple beers deep, not really paying attention, and then look at the sheet and go, yeah, this guy, right? Like,
yeah,
to me, that doesn't feel like you're building your team. What we do, auction in the baseball league that you run,
yeah,
and even though I'm completely checked out of that league because but much like the Cubs, I'm pretty much done this year. Um, I I love draft. Like I've missed it this last
yeah,
year, but I love the auction draft because there's an excitement with like, okay, player gets nominated, let's see who's going in, let's see who wants it, or you can kind of, there's a strategy to looking at your opponent's roster, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, Jeff doesn't have third baseman. There's only a couple of
right,
these good third basemen left. Like I don't have a third baseman. Like okay, here we go, right? Like so, I
yeah,
like that more than just okay. How many picks to me? 8. Okay, these 8 names are probably gone. Let's see if one of them falls to me. If they don't, I'll take this guy. Move on. Right? Like then you just go
right,
back to drinking and not paying attention and wait for your name to be come up. So I would love to see a shift to that. The problem is every time it comes to a vote, we have several casual players in this league that will prevent that from happening. And because we go on a 2/3 majority, which is 8 votes for 12 people, or I think I go 7 votes for 10, or I think it's either 6 or 7 votes for 10. We
yeah,
never get the required votes. We're always like 50-50.
right,
And I would like to see just to try it. Like
yeah,
we can it can immediately be nominated to change back the next year, but like I would love to give it a shot one of these, especially if we were going to do like a big draft party and we have the time to do something like this. I would love to see that. At least just once, just give it a shot because I think it would be beneficial for everybody in the league, and it would kind of incentivize people. It would give the advantage to people that actually do their homework, versus allowing a snake to kind of randomize the league and then giving the casual
right,
players just as much of an edge versus the people that didn't do their homework.
right,
Because I mean, you kind of lose the advantage of knowing every player, knowing, depth chart, knowing kind of targeting your sleeper players versus the snake, where like, okay, well, I like the sleeper, but if I don't take him a round or two early, he's not coming to me.
Right.
So I don't know.
No.
I think it's a more it's a deeper and more satisfying way to draft versus the snake. So hopefully one day we change.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. The only downside to an auction, in my opinion, is how long they take.
Mm-hmm.
The baseball auction, especially with you being on East Coast time, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm an hour ahead of Pacific Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
Is when we do those, if we were to do it for draft night, right, which we don't usually start till like 6, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah, I believe I
For
shoot for I believe I shoot for 6:30 Pacific, which would put me at 9:30 and you at
Right.
7:30.
And if we did an auction, like you, for example, you and Mason may not finish until 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just that's the downside. But I do agree with you. The strategy differences you can get in an auction, the fact that you can just go get like the people you really want,
Mm-hmm.
and you can really structure your team the way you want,
Mm-hmm.
make it a lot of fun. But I do understand why people in our league don't want to do that. Um, you know, People like Sean, who has won the league twice. So
Yes, he has.
not knocking his strategy and but he just goes off ADP a lot of times. He'll print
Yep.
it out, whatever it is that
Yep.
day,
Yep.
and go with it.
Yep.
It's worked for him, but I get why he wouldn't want to do an auction.
Yeah, and he's usually one of the louder proponents of I don't want to do this.
Right. Yeah, it's just too much time, right?
And I'm not gonna single anybody out, but there's a couple other people that have come to me and been like, I don't know if I want to stick around if we switch. And
Right.
in the effort of not wanting to alienate or lose anyone, it's just something that I always kind of like bring up and grumble about, but then never actually like follow through with.
Right.
Because I'd much rather do snake draft and have all my friends there than do an auction and lose people.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, the league isn't. I think if you were to try to maximize the league for the best like strategy,
Mhm.
right? I think, like you said, a couple people probably drop, and then the heart of the league just isn't there anymore, right? So, kind of not worth it at that point. But to move on to the next thing, we haven't done props this year,
We have not.
and I know that you're a very good commissioner, and this is something we do every year.
Stop.
And I'm a huge fan of props because it gives us a little competition in the off season, once a month usually. And when I lived in San Diego and when you live there, a lot of times there's a reason to see you guys or to even just get out of the house. But we haven't done them this off season. So I was hoping you could fill me in on why or what the plan is. I just want to make sure I have a better draft slot than everyone else. So I just want to know what's
I,
going on there.
I would love to break it down for you. So there is a twofold reason as to why we did not do props as of the recording of this, July 23rd. Why there has not been a single prop event. It's twofold reason. Number one, as a commissioner of the league, I am a healthcare worker that has been getting my ass kicked by COVID. Not necessarily that I've had it, but that where I live has a very low vaccination rate. Combined with, I work with older coworkers who have been either getting sick or taking a lot of vacation time or retiring. So this year, I have already pulled 60% more overtime than I did last year, and it's only July.
Okay.
Like the amount of deaths from COVID, and this isn't a political statement, this is a fact. The amount of deaths and COVID from January 1st to now have already exceeded the amount of deaths from January 1st last year to December 31st last year in the United States of America. We have more deaths this year than we did last year. So I've been working an absolute ton. The way I do props is I very rarely copy them from places. I put them together. I pick events, and then I create the prop as fairly as possible. Things that I would have no way of like knowing the outcome of when I create the prop. Then I give the props out. Then I fill the prop out just like everybody else, and I'm the first person to do the prop. So that I'm like, look, I I keep the fairness. I haven't done anything different. Here are all my answers, so I can't like, oh look, I
Right.
graded mine and it's better than everyone else's. That's crazy. I don't know how that keeps happening. Mine is
Right.
transparent. You guys doesn't have to be transparent because they're sent to me. Mine is in front of everybody. All my answers are always posted, in front of everybody, so that even if you like last minute you didn't do the prop, at least you can be like, well, I'll just copy Anthony's answers, and then we get the same score and it's whatever. Like I don't love
Right.
that, but at least it shows fairness. I'm all about fairness.
Hmm.
So that is a lot of work for me to set aside hours of time to make a prop, make sure it's balanced, fill my prop out because I still want to win and get a good draft spot, and then submit it to everyone with ample amount of time for everyone, like usually 3 or 4 days ahead of the event, to have everybody fill that out, send it back to me, and then when it's done, I then have to watch whatever the event was at least another time, if not another 2 times, to grade everyone's. So I have to record whatever event that is, and then go through, because sometimes I'm like, what's the, like for the WrestleMania one, what was the length of this match over and under this? So I have to sit there with my phone, and when the bell rings, I have to start, and I have to watch the match, and then when it's 1, 2, 3, and the bell rings, then I have to hit stop, and then do. So I have to do a lot of work with these, and frankly, the amount of time that has been required to successfully do a prop once a month during the off season has not been there, because it
Right.
would be a detriment to the time that I need to recover from my job, or with being a good spouse and a good father, etc. So I knew this year was going to be a challenge, and then it was even more of a challenge than I thought. And I was like, okay, let me see. Like, we'll probably miss a month. Then it turned into 2 months. Then it turned to 3 months. Then I was like, okay, I can't do this. I know some of the people in the league have volunteered to help me with it, but one of my biggest flaws is I'm a control freak. If I'm going to run the league, I'm going to make sure that I do it so that A, it doesn't inconvenience anybody else, and B, I truly just don't trust anyone else to do it.
Right.
If I'm going to do something and I want to make it done a certain way, I want to make sure that it is done in my way that is, here's all the questions as fair as they can possibly be, this, that, and the other, boom. Normally, the person that wins Pick'ems gets to do one as well, but when they send me their prop, I go through it and make sure it's fair and that it doesn't give too much of an unfair advantage to the person that made it, which is even more work because now I basically have to grade someone's prop and look for any loopholes or inconsistencies. And some people in this
Right.
league are much better at finding loopholes than other people in this league. So that's
Matt.
reason number one. Reason number two, I've had several mixer members, and I will not out anyone in this, but I've had several mixer members come to me and say, I'm having a difficult time filling these out or doing them because of what's going on in my life, X, Y, and Z. And they felt like they're just guaranteed the worst draft spots every year. And
Hmm.
they asked if there was any way to kind of like even that process out or add more randomness to it, or even just do with a lot of leagues I know, which is randomize the order through the system we're using like
Right.
a week before, and just leave it at that, in order so that they can actually have a shot to draft from a different position every year. They were very sincere, and this is more than one person in the league has mentioned this to me. They were very sincere about their requests and kind of worked with me. And I was the type of person that's like, well, I don't want to penalize anybody who does the work, and then not penalize the people that don't. But at the same point, it came to me that it wasn't just laziness and neglect. It was I don't have the time to do them, to watch these things, to follow this stuff. Um,
Right.
like I would like, because we have over the last few years, I've added more random prop elements in, and those have not only gone over really well, but it's actually helped kind of put people in different draft positions to switch up the usual snake. Because if we were to just do the prop system, it ended up being like me, you, Rob, and Matt are somewhere in the first four, like
Right.
draft spots of where, because we don't just go like 1 through 4. It's like, where do you want to draft? And it's usually like you, Rob, Matt, myself at the top, like top four, because we do all the events and we look into it. And then there's people like Jess, Mason, Danny, Rob, or not Rob, like other people
Jake.
who, yeah, Jake, other people who like do most of the props, but then usually don't do as well as we do. That usually kind of get the next spots, and then there's the rest of the league that either can't do the props or don't do them very well, or kind of rush them or whatever, or take partial credit for certain things that always kind of end
Right.
up in the middle, right? Like we all know who ends up being 6, 7, and 8, pretty much every year consistently. So this is a way to kind of shuffle it up, was to go, okay, I'm still going to do 7 events. I'm still going to give the pick'em winner an edge in one of these events, but I'm going to make it, instead of doing one every month, the idea that I'm currently working on, which is league opens August 1st. Rule change voting happens that first week, and then after the rules are set into effect, we pick a day. I go on Discord and I stream all 7 random prop events. We make like a fucking night of it where people can jump on and watch it and participate. Um, like I'm thinking one of them is like a trivia contest, one of them is like a gambling thing, one of them is like watch a sporting event, but like kind of like
Right.
a ESPN 8 sporting event, like marble racing or some shit. Like, and just kind of make it into like a full on event that regardless of where
Right.
everybody is, it would be like a weekend night or something that most people could attend in their homes, like what we're doing here, like just to
Yeah.
jump into Discord with their webcam or whatever, or even just listen to it, and then I'll share my screen on my laptop or my computer and go, okay, here's the 7 things, let's go, and then everybody will then have like 2 weeks to prep. Because instead of waiting for everybody to like grade the props and then waiting for everybody to get back to me on when they want to text their order, I can just be like, by
Right.
the end of this day, by the end of tonight, everyone will know
We'll
their
have
order.
it.
And like I said, one of those events will heavily favor the person who won pickles, which I believe is Rob, because it's usually Rob. But he's that way. He still gets the advantage that is promised when you win pickums. It's gonna be there's gonna be a heavy sense of randomness, so I can already hear Rob complaining about Big Sim. Like in my head right now, I can hear it. Like there's somewhere in San Diego there is a cry of anguish and agony about the amount of randomness, because it did truly screw him over last year with the 3 random events that we did, which was hilarious. And but then I got called an agent of Big Sim, and that stain has not come off of me yet. But this kind of helps me not have to plan 7 different things and put hours into 7 different things. I just have to put hours into one night. We can
Right.
utilize the platform that we all chat on to its fullest capability of watching video games or watching my laptop screen for random events. We can add different elements to it that still give participation an edge to people to participate, right? To give them the opportunity to get more points than the more casual person who may not show up or may not participate, but then
Right.
also gives that same randomness element that helps kind of throw chaos into the mix, so that way like maybe I don't draft at the top, like the very top or the very bottom, like I always do every year because I do all the prop events. Maybe I'm the
Right.
one that gets screwed, and now I have to go like, okay, I'm 7 out of 12, figure it out, right? Like because one thing that we have seen over the last 10 years is that your draft order truly doesn't matter.
Right.
Like the champion has come from almost all positions up and down the list. It helps you get a better team off the bat, but it's usually the guys that have found the diamonds in the rough or have played the waiver wire better or was able to get trades off in this league, because it is painfully difficult to get trades off in our league, that end up making the cut and getting into the playoffs. And then it's just, when anything happens in the playoffs, it's just hot hand. Like
Right.
you know this better than anybody. You make one small benching error and that's it. Like
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like you have like I like the way I won the championship was I just happened to throw one dude in and he went off for 47 points and I won, right? Like
Hmm.
so playoffs is, nuts in and of itself, but it gives you a better chance of getting into the playoffs for the people that actually do the work during the season. Drafting a strong team helps. It's like 60 to 70% of the game, but it's not enough to get in, because I drafted a really strong
Right.
team last year and I did not make the playoffs. So,
Yeah. I mean, last year was tough. I think last year was the probably toughest year in the league for me. It was the first year I didn't make the playoffs, and it was the first year where I had pretty much everyone in my starting lineup injured at some point, or missed games because of COVID, right? And so I think last year we saw a lot of that, which made it really tough. But it just meant, you just got to work harder, right? Like you
yep.
just got to find those guys. But okay, so I really like your idea for props. I think that sounds like a lot of fun. Spending a couple hours one night just kind of hanging out online.
Hmm.
It's not like we don't do that anyway. A lot of times, it's
But
just now we'll
this
have a
this
video to
kind of
watch.
exactly this kind of gives us like another night like it'll be like mid-August. It'll be another night where we can all just be like, okay, like wherever you're at, if you can just jump on and participate, like it'll be this from here to here on this time,
Right.
and then we'll just go and do it. Versus, and then we'll still have draft night, which will be another night we can all jump online and then
Yeah.
get that and do it. Because like starting in August, I open the league back up, and then I get to work with like the draft board and the rule change stuff and setting everything up, and then this will just be another step in that. And then after a very busy August, we draft, and then we're off to the races. Pick'ems opens back up, and we're gone. And this was a big stressor off my back of I didn't really have to worry about putting a Super Bowl prop together, then a March Madness prop together, and a WrestleMania prop together, and this, that, and the other. Because COVID did kind of screw a lot of stuff up. And
Yeah.
it's continuing to screw a lot of stuff up. So it was the most eloquent solution that I could find to multiple problems in the prop system. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this is how we're going to do it from now on. This is just what I want to do this year. And then if next year everything kind of calms down, we get some bounce, we might go back to the old system. If people want to go back to the old system,
Right.
if people like the new system, we might stick with the new system. It's everything's in flux. We just wait and see. But I don't think this alienates somebody to the point where when I'm telling you about this, when I reveal this system, that people are going to be like, fuck that, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, this actually sounds like a really nice compromise. And the people that do more homework, it doesn't matter where you draft from, you'll still probably have a better idea of players, especially towards the end of the draft. So it doesn't really hurt you. It's just a different way to figure things out. So let's move on from that a little bit. We'll get back to the league, but I want to get your thoughts on actual fantasy football.
Sure.
And I don't know how much you've looked at it yet. I don't think you spend as much time in the off season as like Rob or I do. But I know you probably
I do
stay
not.
right. But you probably stay fairly aware of what's going on.
Sure. Definitely follow my own team's training camp. Follow Bears camp. And I have my ear to the ground about like major player moves, like this whole situation with like players not wanting to get the vaccine is definitely kind of throwing everybody's early draft sheets completely bananas. Like I know mine is. I usually start trying to put together a draft, like my draft strategy as training camp unfolds, and right now I have no fucking clue what's going on. Like who I'm trying to target this year.
I know you're the kind of guy that's going to have Cole Beasley in the first round, so you may want to adjust.
Without a shadow of a doubt. If we were doing an auction, that's 25% of my budget right there. Like without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. So the main question I want to ask, and I'm going to ask everyone in the league this when I have them on, is
sure.
When you're looking at fantasy players, what is the one stat you're looking for? Like when you're trying to find, let's say, a diamond in the rough, right? Like obviously we're not talking about like Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, like top-notch guys, right? I'm talking about those guys round 10 or later. What are you looking for that says that's a guy I want to draft?
My big strategy, I don't want to give away too much because then it kind of dictates the way I draft things. But I am a very high floor, low ceiling guy in terms of opportunity. I like the first player on the draft on the depth chart on a bad team better than I like the second or third guy on the depth chart on a good team. And the reason being is in a football game, you only get X amount of passes or touches. Right. And opportunity begets, especially like talking about points per reception, opportunity begets points. So one thing I look for once you get past the safer guys, the guys that are already proven talents, the guys that are going to get their points, the guys that have shown consistency, I like taking the number one receiver on a bad team or a running back that's getting 10, 15, 20 carries a game on a bad team over really trying to fish for an unproven player or a player that we all hear like the buzz and the hype train on this kid's going to do great for X, Y, and Z reasons. I would rather go like, yeah, but this guy's the top receiver on this team. No one's drafted him yet. And it's not like he's not going to get the ball. Or this guy is their starting bell cow. This is their first and second down back on this team. He's going to grind out X amount of yards and X amount of carries every game. When I'm looking to fill in for lower end players, I don't take a lot of lottery tickets.
Right.
I take lottery tickets are good, especially in later rounds, but in like mid to late rounds, I take guys I know are going to consistently show up, and if they start
Hmm.
to dip, they're easy to cut, and if they're starting to go on the rise or consistently performing, they're nice plug and play players for bye weeks. So it
So
helps me save my waiver money for the bigger guys that I want to go in on instead of spending it every week trying to like just grab pieces that I hope are going to pan out. I don't sift for gold very much. I bid for diamonds.
right. So we have a fairly normal fantasy league. I think we have 16 roster spots, something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but those benches aren't the deepest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your strategy would change if we had, let's say, like 20 roster spots? And so
Absolutely.
that way you'd have like three or four extras where you could just store guys if you wanted to wait for them?
There would still be a heavier emphasis, especially in like rounds 6 through 10 or 6 through 12 in a 20 round draft, where I would still try to go out and find proven consistency or higher floor players, even
Right.
if their ceilings aren't projected to be very high. I would still grab a couple of those guys that I've liked and have targeted, done my research on before the season, just to make sure I have the guys that I like. But then, yeah, I think the bigger the roster spot, the more lottery tickets you're just like, well, yeah, fuck it. If he's just going to sit on my bench, who cares? If he doesn't pan out, I
Right.
can cut him when I feel like there's nothing left in him. But you have more of a room to hoard. Versus with the way our roster is designed, if you like having a third quarterback and a second tight end, that only leaves you with like five other spots for wide receiver and running back style players. So you have to be a little bit more selective of like, I'm really, really into this kid. I believe in this kid. I'm going to go and get this kid versus, well, yeah, I don't know about this guy, but I hear some good stuff, so throw him on the bench, right? Like
Right.
you have to be more selective. And for me, I'm always going to pick the safer, more proven player, which doesn't
Yeah.
always pan out. But I have missed the playoff in 11 years. I've missed the playoffs 3 times.
Right.
So
So it works pretty well.
my system tends to get me in the dance, but I've only won the championship once.
You got to
So
get there to
I
win, though.
I have to I probably do need to take more risks on the waiver wire or make trades that are more boom or bust. I think that's where I need to improve. But I can consistently get to the playoffs every year because my system is I'm guaranteed to get this many points. So to
Right.
beat me, you got to have a good week and beat this. I'm not going to
Yeah.
ever get that much higher than where my bar is, but my bar is already going to be pretty good when you come up to me. My projections are always going to be pretty good. So you're going to have to hope for good weeks out of your guys to beat me, which is the
Right.
reason why I consistently get into the playoffs is because I believe my bar is higher than a lot of people who are counting on heavy production.
Okay. So I got two questions left for you. I really like your thought process there.
Hmm.
But my last two questions are more specific to our league. The
Yeah.
first one: what is your favorite roster move that you've made besides the Matt Flynn call that you've already brought up?
Favorite roster move: drafting Frank Gore every year, Mister 3.8, baby. You want to talk about consistency? You want to talk about he's always on the field? You want to talk about guaranteed points? Frank Gore will never retire, and as such, he will find his way on my team every year because I need to plug an RB2 in or a flex or something. I put him in, he gets me 8 to 10 points, and I know what I'm getting every week. Is he going to score a touchdown? Probably not, but is he going to give me 80? He's going to give me 80 yards. You damn right he is, and I will die on that hill. I love that guy.
I can
He's my,
appreciate that.
he's my favorite non-bear from the last 10 years.
Nice. So since we just had a special visitor there, I believe that was Matt, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It didn't look like his wife Jess, so and since you're over there, uh,
I'm currently out of town. I'm staying over at their house. This is not all my booze. This is their booze.
so my last question for you is: who is your favorite person in the mixer to beat in fantasy football?
That is a loaded question because Matt's back there. He can attest to it. Everybody's second rival is Matt.
Right.
So, like, like the poor guy, we love him to death, but he's the one who said it, which was, you want to win, and then if you don't win, you hope he doesn't win. So
Yep.
he's been my rival since the beginning, but him and I have more of just like this like sort of like tired acceptance of we're just gonna do this till we die. Like
Right.
so I like picking a rival. I like picking my narrative every year. Like
Okay.
when we had three divisions, you, me, Mason, and Corey were the Bullet Club division. So
That was
like
always fun.
I liked playing with you guys because once one of us was out, we just rooted for the other people in that group. So that
Yeah.
year, my rival was anybody but you guys. But then the following year, Rob was the reason why I lost in the playoffs. Like he knocked me out of the playoffs. So like I was like, okay, well next year I have to beat his ass. So my rival this year is this guy. Because we used to end up
Right.
doing rivalry week, and like more often than not, it was whoever my rival was whoever knocked me out of the playoffs the year before. And now we kind of do a theme week thing where certain weeks I'll put certain players together, and they're kind of like the matchup to watch. Like when Matt and
Right.
Jess play, it's like the Hale House matchup, or like when you and Mason play, it's like we get the best shit talk when you two guys are matched up. So this year, it was me and Matt for last place. So we both were terrible. So there's no rivalry there. We were both bad.
Right.
So I was just a little less bad the last week of the season, and was sweating bullets the entire time. So it'll probably just germinate to whoever doesn't have a rival this year. But I'm more interested in there are stronger rivalries in the league. Like Rob and Sean is the rivalry to watch this year, I think, because of the fact that Sean has been the champ for a couple years, and then Rob won. So like
Right.
that's a rematch of like Big Sim versus Rob.
Not Big Sim.
Yeah, exactly. It's anti Big Sim. So that's a good rivalry to watch. You and Mason is always a good rivalry to watch. Like that's a really really fun week because like the Discord just gets disgusting. So I don't necessarily have like a big rival. If I had to say, it would probably just be matches because him and I have been playing against each other. So there's only been 3 people since the inauguration of the league, and there's only been 2
Right.
actually good people since the inauguration of the league. So it's usually just him and I playing against each other like every single year, and that'll probably just be that because I mean, when it's at the top, it's him and I. When we're both at the bottom,
Right.
it's him and I. Like, we're like wherever one of us finishes, usually the other one kind of finishes near there too.
You guys
So
just follow each other around.
yeah, we're just destined to do this forever. That's gonna be what it is. And when there's no rivalry, it's still just like, well, I got to do better than him, and he's got to do better than me. So
Yeah.
that's probably the one to watch. But I'm excited for more rivalries than myself. My whole thing is I just want to get in the playoffs and then see what happens. But during the
Right.
week, it's more fun to talk up other people's rivalries than it is to
Yeah.
like focus on my own. I don't really care about my own. It's more fun to like get the league because just like any other major sport, it's made better with shit talking and rivalries. Like
Yeah.
you and I have had this conversation that like every sport should be like pro wrestling where people just cut
Oh, yeah.
nasty promos on each other regardless of the sport because that sort of thing drives viewership and inspires like people watching, and tribalism is already so heavy in sports. What better way to encourage that than to be like, you know, I hate you, and then the other guy goes, well, I hope your mom catches syphilis, and the other one goes like, I hope your house burns down. And now suddenly you're invested even if you don't care about the sport. Like if Serena Williams would talk
Right.
more shit to people, I would watch a hell of a lot more tennis. Or like if Rory McIlroy was had his balls out every time Tiger tried to putt, like I would watch way more golf.
This is why Brooks Koepka is by far my favorite golfer. He's not afraid to talk shit to someone.
Yeah,
He's in
that's
he's in Bryson DeChambeau's head right now,
yeah.
and it is so great.
Yeah, and like if you ask Mason, like who's the greatest UFC fighter of all time, it's the American Gangster. It's Chael Sonnen, because he's undefeated. He's 50.
Because all he does is talk.
That's it. He just runs his mouth, and I don't even he was selling fights you didn't care about during the press conference by saying stuff like, "Why don't you go home and worship the altar of me you have in your house?" Like those comments like that, where it's like, pay this man all of the money.
Right.
I want this guy to win every single fight, just based solely on the fact that he's embarrassing his opponents on the microphone. Which is why, regardless of technical skill, The Rock is the best wrestler of all time. Because he was cutting promos that stalled or ended men's careers in professional wrestling on like Tuesday nights.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's one thing we can definitely agree on is the shit talking just makes everything better.
100%. And we have
Um,
such a good close knit group of people that like we love each other like brothers and like in Jess's case sisters, but at the same time we can just get so mean to one another, and it always makes me really really happy to hurt my friends' feelings during fantasy football season.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. So before we log off,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to say to the league or to anyone out there?
I want to thank everybody for their flexibility during a really difficult time. I want to thank everybody's understanding for when I have to do things like change the prop event stuff or make changes on the fly. I think we have a really really good group of people in this league. I am I have a lot of friends, but I'm very selective about who they are, and this little family that we have is a wonderful, close knit group of people. And regardless of what rule changes we come up with or where we all end up, this has been a constant in our lives for the last decade, and I hope it goes for another 2 or 3.
Well said. Well, thank you for joining, Anthony.
Thank you for
It's been
having
a
me.
pleasure. Enjoy your party tonight. I hope
Thank
Matt's
you.
been treating you right.
No, this
Matt,
has
you'll get
been
your turn.
this has been a this hotel is a 5-star hotel. I was on a Peloton a couple hours ago. Like
Nice.
he has done nothing but be an excellent host, and I'm gonna drink a lot of that alcohol here in just a little bit.
I hope you leave him a good review on Yelp or Airbnb, wherever he's listed.
Wherever, yeah, I'll chat it up. Like great exercise services. Like the Wi-Fi was fantastic. Food and alcohol, 10 out of 10. It took me a minute to figure out the microwave because it's smarter than my child. But other than that, great atmosphere, great location. Yeah, I would recommend it to anybody who wants to stay and have a lot of free booze.
Nice. Well, thank you for coming on, Anthony. It's good to see you.
Good to see
Fuck
you,
you,
man.
Matt.